And so this dialogue really, though, centered around the questioning of, are we focused on the right people? And I want to expand that a little bit. Are we missing anyone? Is there a group of employees that we aren't offering any training to or communicating development opportunities to?
Are you trying to be a better leader, change industries, reset after a layoff, or just looking for ways to bring your whole self to work? Well, you're in the right place. Hello and welcome to the Connect the Dots podcast, where I am focused on helping you through these situations and more by sharing real life stories and practical tips. I'm here to support you through coaching and mentorship, along with some amazing guests.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Connect the Dots. I'm your host, Heather Balsaric. My pronouns are she and her. I am a white woman with short strawberry blonde hair. I am wearing a black shirt and I have on red glasses. I am sitting in front of a teal wall covered in different art pieces. If this is your first time listening or watching, welcome in. And for those who have returned, thanks so much for coming back. Connect the Dots is brought to you by the Polka Dot Desk, which will offer corporate coaching and consulting and will officially be opening for clients in Q4 of 2023. So stay tuned. I had a couple of questions this week about your podcast is Connect the Dots, but your newsletter is at thepolkadotdesk.substack.com. Like, what's this connection here? So I wanted to just kind of bring you up to speed a little bit on kind of what's going on. So Connect the Dots is my podcast. It lives under the umbrella of the Polka Dot Desk, which is my corporate coaching and consulting firm. Sounds weird to say, but the company, my LLC that I will be using to offer coaching. Corporate coaching and consulting, leadership, coaching, career type coaching, that type of thing. But yeah, so officially opening in Q4 of this year. So look for that coming soon. But let's talk about what we're here for today. Welcome to part 2 of Unlocking the Value of Learning and Development in Business. I am deep diving into my top takeaways from the Training Industry Conference and Expo, or TICE. And in part 1, I shared 6 takeaways from the one of the keynote panel discussions. And today I'm going to share 5 takeaways from a few of the different sessions that I attended. And like last week, I will make sure to relate them back to leadership. So even if you aren't in learning and development, they can help you lead from where you are. The next episode will cover the last 4 takeaways. So that'll be part 3. So make sure you sign up for the newsletter over at thepolkadotdesk.substack.com. And as my friend David used to say, it is free 99. And the podcast is delivered straight to your inbox. That is thepolkadotdesk.substack.com. So today's takeaways are, so like I said, there's 5 of them. So the first one that we'll talk about is, it doesn't matter if it's fun, it matters if it's relevant. The second one is, are we focused on the right people? The third is, tell them it's okay if it's not perfect. The fourth one, design learning pathways in future state. And 5 is the acronym LEARNS, LEARNS. So let's get into these because there is so much to share. So the first 2 takeaways come from a session called How Learning Fitness Lifts People and Employees Up and Sets a Course to Success. And this was presented by Justin Dial from Skill Cycle. And there's a little bit of a lead in for this. So let me kind of set the scene here. So Justin was covering a change workflow, and he pointed out that you really have to work with the correct individuals when you're working through change. So think about how we are constantly providing opportunities for learning and growth. If we're only giving development to 20% of our people, then we're only going to get 20% growth and development from our people. But if we're offering it to 100% of our people, then we will get 100% growth and development. And then he mentioned that so often we are focused on the high potential employees. And then he goes, why? I just love the way he said it. It's so memorable in my head because he was like, so often we focus on the high potential employees, but why? Which, side note, I have to laugh at that because high potential employees are part of my audience, my customer base at work. And so it really made me laugh. So I was very intrigued to like, where are you going with this? Wait a minute. But he pulled it back around to talk about the potential diamonds in the rough, right? And how it really doesn't take much to really get them interested. So you have to try to get them interested, get them into what he called an ever-learning mindset. So, a mindset that's always learning, looking for that development. And you want to get them into the thinking, into the mindset of, okay, if I do this and I grow, that means I can stay with the company, or that means I can, get a different position. I can move up, right? So you got to get them interested in that ever learning mindset. And so that they can realize that if they do it, then they can grow, and that opens up more opportunities for them with the company. And so this dialogue really, though, centered around the questioning of, are we focused on the right people? And I want to expand that a little bit. Are we missing anyone? Is there a group of employees that we aren't offering any training to or communicating development opportunities to? So pulling this back to the concept of leadership and thinking, are we focused on the right people? If you're leading a team, are you focused on supporting and developing your team or simply pushing down what comes from above to please your leader? And I've had those leaders. The one that's just sitting in the back office, refusing to come out and help. They aren't focused on the right people. If you're an individual contributor leading from where you are you focused on the right people? Are you focused on the customer, your client, your peers? Your focus is key. And I think about this in terms of like in a motorcycle safety course, they teach you that if you look down, you go down. And if you take your focus off the road, you will go off the road as well. So I ask again, are you focused on the right people? Are you looking in the right direction? So the next takeaway from Justin's section came right at the end when he was covering the last step of this change workflow. And he said, continually assess and adjust change implementation strategy. And so we will have to make adjustments and changes along the way to learn to be agile. And guess what that means? It wasn't perfect because we have to adjust and change. Justin reminded us that we need to tell people it's okay not to be perfect. And I have a couple of past episodes that address perfectionism. So I know I could stay here for quite a while, but I won't. But whether it's in learning and development or leadership, this one's pretty straightforward. No one is perfect. And it's okay. Tell people that it's okay if they're not perfect. So in reviewing my notes for this session, I did find a bonus takeaway for you from this session with Justin. And we're going to do a little activity. So if you're driving, you have a pass on this. I want you to stay safe out there. But for everyone else that can safely participate, please join in. And so with your dominant hand, I want you to write your name, either with a pen or in the air. If you don't have a pen, it doesn't matter. Just I want you to write your name with your dominant hand. Got it? Okay. Now I want you to do the same thing with your non-dominant hand. So either with a pen or in the air, write your name with your non-dominant hand. How much longer did it take you to do that? How much longer did it take you to do that with your opposite hand? 5, 10, 20 seconds even? So if we're not adapting to people, if we're making people write with their non-dominant hand, that is costing time and money for your company. So think about that, right? If you're training someone or you're, leading someone and you are basically having them do something that's equivalent to writing with their non-dominant hand, you're not adapting to them. That is going to cost your company time and money. And so this inability to adapt, it could cost, $100,000 in some cases for that little 20 seconds. So when you're making the case for something, you want to show how adapting or not adapting can cost the company money. Because when you're going to put something in front of leaders and to try to implement a change, try to get a new product, try to, whatever it is, right? When you're presenting to leaders, right, you got to monetize that. And so showing how you're adapting or not adapting can cost them money, monetizes that for them, and you want to tell that story. So our next takeaway comes from the Learning as a Catalyst for Business Growth session, and this was put on by Litmos. Kylie Stair and Ryan Morris were the presenters, and they walked us through an example of how learning can help business growth if you are aligning the two. And they were talking about outlining goals, and we generally have a format for that, right? When we're doing something, we first look at business goals, right? What are the business goals? What do they want to accomplish? And then we look at department goals, right? Well, what does the department want to do? But the next step, that third step, sometimes, most of the time, can get overlooked. Because those of us in L&D, we don't intend to overlook it, but we get to a place where we just get really focused on building something that's cool, engaging. We just get excited. And we're like, oh, shiny, let me build. Because we're we got a goal and we got these goals and we got these goals. Yes, let's do it. Yeah. We want to build that really cool, engaging learning experience that everybody loves. But we forget something that really needs to come before the excitement. And Ryan points out that it doesn't matter if it's fun. It matters if it's relevant. So whatever you're developing, it has to be relevant to the learner. So if you skip the next step, which that next step of goal setting is learner goals, what does the learner want to accomplish that will support the department goals that will then in turn support the business goals? And I think it's just, I don't know, it hit me like a ton of bricks, right? Because the main takeaway was that thought of it doesn't matter if it's fun, it matters if it's relevant. When you are in the development phase of a program, you have to make sure that it's relevant to your learner, the department, and the business. And those three must align with each other. Once you have that, once that alignment is there, you know that it's relevant, that the learner wants it, that's what they want. It's going to help get the department what they want, which in turn will help the business get what they want. Then you can focus on making it fun and engaging. Because I see you instructional designers out there, right? You were giving me the stink eye, weren't you? I know you were. But let's pull that thought out of L&D for a second and put that leadership lens on it. As a leader, if you're delivering something, right, it could be coaching, feedback, training, right? What's your primary focus? Are you looking to make it fun before you make it relevant? Or do you make sure that your message is relevant and then add in the fun and engagement? And personally, I'm going through this takeaway and it's making me think about the work that I'm currently doing. I have a lot of engagement that I'm trying to build into my program. And because I want it to be a good experience, I want people to be excited to be there and get a lot out of it. But I've gone through, but I have to ask myself, right? Have I gone through to make sure that the focus and purpose of each piece is relevant? So I'll be going back through the outline tomorrow to make sure that, my business department and learner goals are top of mind for everything, and making sure that it is very relevant for my learner before I start to add in those heavy engagement pieces. The next one comes from one of the individuals that I had a really deep and engaging conversation with. And so this was Brian from Acto Learning. He gave a presentation on 8 proven practices you can use to create personalized learning pathways. And one of those practices was design performance and learning pathways in the future state. It said, you will lead or participate in future state performance design and analysis to achieve the stakeholders' business goals. In the last episode, we touched on the reactive, proactive, predictive concept. And when you are in a reactive state, it's really hard to think about designing for future use. Right? Your customer wants it now. Right? They need help fixing the problem now, the one that they've got right now. And so when you're thinking about designing like a learning pathway, you cannot do this from a reactive state. You have to think about what that learner is going to need in the future. And learning pathways are typically put together for different types of roles. So for example, a customer service position would have a specific pathway to work through as they're onboarding into the company. Like their 30, 60, 90-day plan, right? They have a certain set of trainings that they have to go through, right? It's going to put them on the right path to be successful. So in designing that training, you're going to work with your customer or your client in a proactive, but hopefully a more predictive state. Because you want to predict, right? What is that future state that they're going to need? And I think the hardest thing about this in L&D is when you're living so much in the reactive space, it can be difficult to adjust your mindset and outlook. Taking yourself and your client out of the current situation and looking at what the desire is for the future, right? Thinking back to the business, department, and learner goals, how they connect, right? We talked about that earlier. In order to be successful, you have to have those pieces in place. You can't work out of that reactive mindset, right? Again, you have to take yourself out of that current situation and look at the future and make sure that it's aligning with the business, department, and learner goals. In terms of leadership, thinking about designing in future state really comes back to how you are setting goals, coaching, or even giving feedback. When you are setting goals or designing a goal, if you will, you can't set the goal in the past. It has to be future state. Once you have it set, then you can build the pathway to get there. You outline what the you of tomorrow will need to accomplish the goal. With coaching, it's helping the person see what the future looks like if they change or if they don't. And feedback, right? This is a way to help outline what you're expecting to see in future state from someone. So what is the future state that you're designing for? The last one for today. This comes from the session called Brain-Friendly Learning, How to Use Neuroscience to Improve Training. It was led by Jackie Colbert from Synos Health. Maybe I said that right. Maybe I didn't. I don't know. Anyways, this was a very, very popular session, right? It was standing room only in there. I luckily got a seat, but it was one of the most engaging and fun sessions that I went to. I love learning about neuroscience and how the brain works, all of that stuff. And she did get into some deeper neuroscience stuff. Like at the beginning, we talked a little bit about that. But obviously, being a good trainer, facilitator that she is, she knew that wasn't going to last long for this audience. She didn't need to get too deep and sciencey. So she prepared for most of the session to be interactive with the crowd. Like she had crowd participation. She was moving all around the room. So much. It was really, really good. But my biggest takeaway from the session was an acronym. Of course, right? L&D loves a good acronym. Anyways, the acronym was LEARNS, LEARNS. And it spelled out how to improve retention of knowledge from your trainings. So let's break this down. L stands for links. What do you already know? What do you already know about, and how can you link it back to the new information? Right? You want to help your learner answer this question. E is for emotions. You want to elicit emotions, a way for them to connect to the content. Think about your slide design. What would work better to elicit emotion, words or a picture? If you put the word puppy on a screen versus a photo of a puppy, what is that gonna do? I mean, for me, even just thinking about the difference between the two gives me two different emotions. I don't really get an emotion from the word puppy on a screen, but a photo of a puppy, I see that in my head and I go, oh, right? Emotion. How are you going to elicit emotions to help them connect to the content? Attention. That's the A. So A is for attention. This is the key to memory. And as a trainer or facilitator, right, you want to use your superpowers for this one. What are those superpowers, you ask? Let me tell you. So first, use names. It's everybody's favorite word. Your name is your favorite word. Don't deny it. Everyone loves to hear their name, so use names. Second, increase the complexity of the activity. Right? Make them focus more. Make the activities progressively harder so that they can really dig in a little bit more, pay a little bit more attention. Third, ask questions. Keep their attention by engaging them in quick questions to get their attention back, or send them to breakout rooms and have them answer questions there. But just you want to keep that engagement flowing to keep their attention. Fourth, think about who is doing the work in the class, right? Who should be doing more work in the class, the trainer or the learner? If you said learner, ding, 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 you are correct and you win a digital cookie. Congratulations. Enjoy. But to keep the learner's attention, they need to be doing the work, right? If you're just standing there, bok, 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 Charlie Brown teachering them, they're not going to get anything out of it. But if you're facilitating, you're asking questions, you're giving them more complex activities, you're saying their name, you're having them do the work, they're reading the slides or they're standing up to do an activity, whatever, they're doing the work. That helps keep their attention. So the fifth superpower is reduce multitasking. This one can be difficult, especially in that virtual space, but you want to set expectations up front. Right. If you're having a virtual meeting and you know that it's, particularly, maybe it's leaders, right? And they're super busy. They get a lot of email, they get a lot of chats, whatever, right? Set the expectations up front that you need their attention while they're here and that you will offer mini breaks throughout the class to check emails and messages, right? Encourage them to be present. Now the R is for repetition. Have you ever noticed how a good speaker calls back to things that they've mentioned before? Or you have that old fun fact that someone has to hear something X number of times to actually hear the message. Yes, repetition is important to help link the concepts together and bring the attention back to the knowledge you want them to learn. N, novelty. This can enhance the memory. Right? Use props, move around the room, be silly. Like some of the best classes that I have facilitated had more novelty than other ones. And these were classes where we laughed because a group activity was fun and was silly and people, had a good time communicating, or we watched a video that really pulled at the heartstrings. Novelty helps tell the story and make it stick. Speaking of stories, that's what S stands for. Stories help make connections for the learner. So think about all of the business books that I've read, and the ones that really stick for me are the fables. I can remember the characters and how they interacted, which helps me remember the concepts. So bring stories into your classes, into your trainings. So how can leaders use the concept of learns? And it's honestly, it's really the same as I outlined above, pretty much. But when you're working with a team, right? You want to help them make links between the concepts by linking the new information to previous information, right? Make sure that you address the head and heart of a person when you're working through a change, right? The emotion comes through the answer to that "what's in it for me" question, right? You're addressing the heart. What's in it for me? What's the why? That is what helps you connect that emotion. Attention. Come on now, leaders. This is a pretty important one, from you to them and them to you. Use those superpowers. Use their name. I try to make it a point to know my team. I try to make it a point to know, like, if they have children or pets, spouses. I try to make sure I know their names too, right? I'm paying attention to what they're telling me. Help them. You want to help them move through something, to something more complex, right? When we talked about attention, right? Making that activity more complex. Ask them questions. Now, the next one, right, is R, repetition. Repetition is not an excuse for micromanaging. So just get that out of your mind. Repetition as a leader would look like, to me, repetition, would look like teaching a concept to your direct report, right? You teach it to them. You show them the concept. Then you have them walk you through the concept. Then they show you the concept, et cetera, right? Let repetition help you teach and pass the skills onto your team. Novelty. Come on now. Does anyone enjoy a leader that has a zero novelty factor? Leaders, it's okay. It's okay to smile. It's okay to have fun. It's okay to laugh. Have a little novelty in your interactions with your team. And stories. Share your story. Share your customer story. Help them connect through a story, not just words. Oh, man, that was a lot. I know, but we made it through. And this wasn't as long as the last episode, so that's good. That's good. But let me run down these again one more time for you, just to remind you of what we talked about today. That, repetition is important. So the first takeaway I shared with you is that it doesn't matter if it's fun. It matters if it's relevant. Then we have, are you focused on the right people? And tell them it's okay if it's not perfect. And then that bonus one from Justin, if we aren't adapting to people, it's costing time and money for your company, right? That non-dominant hand exercise. The fourth one was design learning pathways in future state. And then the fifth one was learns, like how to help people retain knowledge, right? You want to link it to something that they already know. You want to elicit emotions for them to connect to. You want to keep their attention. You want to engage with repetition. Use novelty, and tell stories. All right. That is it for today. I will be back in 2 weeks with some more takeaways from TICE and how they apply not only to learning and development, but to leadership in general. And I will help you connect those dots around the concepts. But until then, please make sure that you connect with me on all the social media things. So at Ms. Heatherby. on Instagram, at connectthedots_podcast on Instagram. Make sure you check out the YouTube channel. If you want to watch the podcast, the video for the last episode is up now. If you want to go watch it. And then all the links, all that stuff, it's down in the description. You know where to find it. It's down there. But again, please be sure that you like, you share, you follow, rate, review, subscribe, ring the bell, and shout hallelujah. Because all those things help you stay in touch with me, help me know that you're out there and you're enjoying this content, because I so appreciate every minute that you spend with me. I really do. So we will see you next time for part 3 of unlocking the value of learning and development in business. But But until then, I want you to remember that you are loved, you are worthy, and there are great things ahead for you in this life if you trust and believe in the Lord.